back to us, because it will be profound. That's what I'm looking for. But it's something that we can use for all the groups, because the way I asked the question was so that it dealt with the 281,000.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll see. But those Monday morning 7 a.m. meetings are worth it. Okay, let's see. Dr. Tolson is coming in. Anyone know where? Is that what you want to email the president or text him? Good morning, Dr. Tolson. How are you?
Good. How are you? Happy Memorial Day.
Good morning.
We're excited you're here. We're going to wind up sending you some paperwork.
Okay.
So we won't be, I don't think we'll be covering everything this morning. I think we just need some general guidance until you can read the material. And President Roberts is coming on now, so he can kind of give you an overview of what his task force is working on.
Okay.
You go from there. President Roberts, he's coming, audio is not in yet. President Roberts, good morning. You're on. Dr. Tolson is on. I think he's still looking for something. President Roberts, can you hear us? Let's see, he is not muted. There you go.
He's on.
No, he clicked, but it went off again.
I think I'm on.
You are on.
Yeah, we hear you. I hear you.
Yes, we hear you.
I'm glad my lawnmower worked better than my computer did this morning. Good morning, Dr. Tolson. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
I think everyone's here, Jimma, right?
Yeah, President Brown is on. I think past President Robert Freeman was on at 7 this morning, so I think he'll be on. But okay. I think we can get started so we don't waste too much of Dr. Tolson's holiday.
So why don't you go ahead and start, you and Mrs. Moore, then I'll chime in where needed.
Well, can you give him your big picture from what you're working with, and then any technical things that he's going to need from us so that he can review what goes out?
I think we did it once before, but I'll give you the thumbnail sketch. As you recall, my predecessor, President McNabb, started this conversation on how to close the achievement gap for Black students. And Jim and Mrs. Moore attended probably, 2015 or so, a
2015.
National, sorry, Ms. Moore?
2015.
15. Called by the national office with the Chamber of Commerce, and the whole conversation dealt with how do we work to close the achievement gap among Black students. And we then, after I came in 2017, began the conversation with the Ohio Department of Education to intentionally see how we can't put together recommendations on how to close the achievement gap. And as I read more and more of ESSA, and that's what it's supposed to be doing, but it's measuring. And really what we're interested in doing is putting some specific recommendations in place. And so we've had probably 4 or 5 public hearings where we asked professionals, both Black and white, who are doing tremendous things here in Ohio to close the achievement gap. I mean, we could go to Connecticut, we go to Chicago, but we wanted people to hear what's going on in Ohio. So when Ohio would say, well, they could do that in Connecticut, we can't do that in Ohio. So we've got testimony from people who have actually done some positive things in our schools, helping our Black children. And so we're at the phase where we're ready to make those recommendations public. We are running into a couple of stumbling blocks, at least the Ohio Department of Education. And so keep this in mind, we're doing this in conjunction with the Ohio Department of Education. And this would be our second, maybe third superintendent that we'll be working with. The question is that we are saying that because they're receiving federal dollars, they have to do these things. The language that we're debating with them right now is voluntary versus non-voluntary or involuntary. And we're saying if you receive federal dollars, it's not a voluntary. You have to do this because you're receiving those dollars. And so that is the legal aspect and where we think we're stuck, but we're pursuing it. And more and more I read what ESSA says and what we need to be doing, it's clear to me that we are on the right track. So we have a meeting, I believe, next week. And then we have probably one more task force or strategic task force, the planning group, the following. So that's where we're basically at. And we're ready. I think we're on top of it. And Dr. Tolson, as you, I think, observed the first time, no other state has done this. You know, I served 20 years in the legislature, and I looked at education from across the board. You know, how we're going to help all students close the achievement gap. How are we going to deal with deficient schools? But this is the first time I know in my lifetime that we looked at public education from a Black lens. You know, and some, as I pointed out at one presentation, we're doing it through the microscope. You know, before we were doing it with a wide lens, but now we're doing it with a microscope, getting down into the nitty gritty of what's going on with our babies, as C.J. Prentice would often say, and how we can't, as parents, as civil rights organization, close that gap. So that's where we're currently at. And I'll turn over to Mrs. Moore and Jimma to see if they want to share something at this point. Go ahead, Jimma.
Mrs. Moore, do you want to bring, because you were statewide education chair under Ms. McNabb when we started this, when I was brought into the process. So you might want to give him a little bit of that. I'm putting up on the screen so that he'll be able to access all the work that's being done at the state is on the state website. And there are videos that go along with this that's also on the website. It's all being recorded. And so we want to get that link to you so that you can see that, as well as what they're getting ready to send to the federal government, which is what we really need you to take a look at, is what these amendments that they're proposing, so that we're ahead of the game and not behind it. So that we're trying to be proactive. Mrs. Moore?
So why don't you just continue with that, Jimma?
Okay. There's a section here, Dr. Tolson, that you can see. Oh, please, this is every student's CDAC. Ohio releases draft amendment. So there's a draft amendment attached to this and the various components of what they're doing. So when they made the announcement on getting this out, we had about, I think, a week to respond. Fortunately, the task force meets every night anyway. So we were able to get on top of it to get to President Roberts, the statement. I think you received the statement from President Roberts. Did you get that? If you did not, we'll,
I think so.
if you did not, we'll send that along with the links. We'll do it after.
Okay.
However, so this is what they put up. We'll send this so you can go right into the website. And it will be available to you. And then we, this particular part of the, not a part of the where the recording is, but we used it this way, delivering on the promise of Brown, because we wanted to keep it contextualized within that paragraph that we sent you out of the Brown decision, which dealt directly with the state's responsibility. Most people look at the desegregation piece, but there's really a significant paragraph in there on education that has to be interpreted, translated, or taken as is. In the task purpose items, what President Roberts was speaking to, there are 7 purpose items that we have whittled it down to these purpose items. But when you look at them, number 3 and number 4 contains the word voluntary use to gauge implementation of best practice models. And down here, voluntarily use and implementation of identified best practice models. So if you notice in that it took us a month to get the title because they wanted best practice, but they didn't want it to say academic. And then by the time we got best academic practice, they didn't want it to end with Black students. So that's what took at least a month. Well, I had 2 meetings, so it was over a 2-month span of discussions just to get the title right, to be specific about what we were trying to do. So that's why best academic practice models for Black students. We also have links to best academic practice principles that we brought in to both the university and the community college to deconstruct their report cards and go through the challenges, the barriers that their kids had. And we used at the very beginning 100% poverty schools, just to kind of neutralize the poverty issue. And these were high performing, anywhere from 17% to 84% African-American kids. So we made sure we had a spread. We had a general high school, we had a STEM high school, and we had an early college high school. So there were 5 or 6 of them overall. And then we brought people in from the community to listen, to ask questions. We did a certain number of interviews. All that stuff is on video, the playlists and all that. So we'll send all that to you, so at your leisure, you can look at it. But the major item for us right now is this particular piece here, which kind of gets it into your lap. It's going to cross the Ohio border, and it's going to go to the federal level, asking for these particular changes. And as you know, states are passing laws every day, and we're trying to tie this law directly to why they're requesting the changes, and then whether or not those changes fit within the paradigm of what national sees that states should be doing, that locals should be doing to better advocate for our children in these particular spaces. And the other piece, and I want to show you this before we stop, and let me just stop sharing this, because the changes they made in 2018, they made a dramatic switch. So I want to try and bring that particular switch up as to how they did this. In 2018, they switched from a single goal, I'll read that to you, and this is 2017, they made the switch. They got the approval in 2018, the implementation, they changed the process. So what they were doing prior to that for 5 to 10 years, the annual measurable objectives compare the performance of student groups to a state goal, which is displayed as the red line in the following chart. That's this line. So in other words, everyone knew where at minimum in the state of Ohio they needed to get to, and that line did not represent a black, blue, white, whatever line. It represented the state expected, the minimum that the state expected, and then everyone was supposed to work toward that. They changed that process. So pretty much the way the process is working now is the idea that you have to, within each group, racial ethnic group and others, and we try and describe them that way, basically wherever you were at baseline of 2015, that they put the plan in place from 2015 forward. And our contention was, which we did present, and it is on the ODU website, the historical perspective of the Ohio Constitution, the Black codes. When public education was started in the middle of the Black codes, Black kids were left out. And therefore there was this period of time where there's been no remedy for them being behind. And now they're being penalized for being behind because they're starting in 2015. And so that's just kind of the overview. And so I'll make sure I send this to you as well. But the big issue up to 2017, across the state had a minimum that every racial ethnic group and others had to meet in order to meet that state minimum. Okay, in 2013, it was 84. In 2014, it was 83. In 2015, it went to, I think, 71. Then it went back up to ELA 77, as you can see at the bottom here. And for math, it was 72. So it was basically a C. That's what that line represented. And now it's different. And that's part of what they're asking for in terms of the changes. And that's a big to do where we are. Now, this allows you to just look at, and this will come to, when we started looking at local, we then had to start looking at the state, because the state board sees a different report card, and that's this report card. And they're looking at 3 years across the board. And this is the racial ethnic group piece here. Go back down. And so you can see here where the Black students are in 2016, 17, 18, where they were in 19. And of course, all that went down. But because of the Brown decision was basically a black-white decision, we were comparing where the white students were to where the Black students were. And then we were looking for the laws of the state that allowed intervention, and were those interventions actually taking place that would move that at a more accelerated rate, not to be where the white kids are or where the Asian kids are, but what is the minimum standard that the state expects from all the students that they have resources for, and then how do we accelerate from there? So with that, I'm just going to leave it so that you can kind of.
Jimma, I think you were starting to talk about the switch. Go ahead and complete that thought.
Well, on the switch was they switched from that graph that I was showing you to a different process. And let me see. The different process is they have a AMO. This is the AMO chart that they switched to, and they made a pretty distinct statement here. So this is what they switched to in 1920, right? 18, 19, 20s where they switched. And there's language here, right here. We kind of highlighted this. And the table below the ELA math and graduation rates approved by the U.S. Department of Education in Ohio State Plan. They made changes here in terms of how they would calculate the highlighted columns are the columns used for the 2020 report. Note that the ELA and math goals are the numerical performance index scores needed for each group to meet the AMO. They're not the percentage of points earned. In other words, the school's economic disadvantage subgroup will meet the English AMO if the students in the group, and the AMOs for each subgroup will increase annually to 2025-26. Therein lies where this particular up here, third change that they made, rather than using a single AMO goal, that would be the red line, that all groups are expected to reach, the ELA, math, and graduation rate goals have individual performance index scores or graduation rates set based on the statewide performance of each group. That was the switch. So it was no longer the state of Ohio had a single academic goal, minimum of a C, that all districts had to meet and or exceed. So there was no guaranteed outcomes. And then everyone had to work toward that. What they then switched to is now dependent upon that group within the group. And that's
so in our opinion, and continue on, Jimma, but in our opinion, what they did was lower the expectation for Black students. And where white students achievement expectations 86 point something, for Black students, it was what, 60 something?
63.4.
63 point something.
Right.
And their explanations, I recall, was Well, they had to do that in order to comply with ESSA. And so we said, bull. And so that's really what led us on this journey to really challenge, as we look at it, dumbing down the expectations for our children.
Okay. Yeah. And I remember we had this conversation with our attorney, and, you know, I've been on board with whatever action or declaration we need to make to eliminate these alternate standards or disparate standards. And our lawyer, he was hesitant at first, but he got on board too. But I think we stopped.
And we before you go on, and we want to thank you for that, because that was a paradigm shift. So all the team needs to know, we did feel some relief when you made that comment in the meeting. Thank you.
Good. Yeah. So I think that's where we stopped last. I don't think we ever landed on what the specific action was.
Right. Well, what was happening and what has happened is that because of the first chart that I showed you, which I'll send, they've asked for public comment on this new amendment to the ESSA plan, which basically is going to go across the spectrum in terms of what that is. So it's going to cross the Ohio border into the federal realm, which basically gets it into your lane. And that's why we want you to look at what they're offering up front in comparison to this, which is where they were, and see how national needs to weigh in at whatever level, but most certainly before it's approved, to make sure that there's some national input into it.
Yeah. So the first slide you showed me is the alternative to this one.
Right. Exactly. It's the new request in terms of amendments. Let me pull it back up again. Let me just find it here for a second. Okay, here it is. So this is the amendment. Here are the components. This is a request for public comment, and this is all here. So it's all there. And then all of our work that we've been doing in terms of the public and who has participated. I think there were like 24 people statewide, unions, principals, private schools, public schools, administrators. So these things have been videotaped, audio taped, and placed on the state website. So, but the key right now is as soon as these comments come in, which is what we wanted to get ahead of the game, we wanted to make sure that National had an opportunity to see what's being proposed as opposed to what is.
Okay.
And to make a decision as to how and where and if, as the chief legal counsel said, is this a policy issue or a legal issue? I just think anything that's policy is also legal in order for it to be constitutional. So that's a single page. It connects with all of these, and the resources for all of these are here, and what it replaces. So the background is all there, and the background to our work is also there on the one that on this particular one.
So Dr. Tolson, when and I'm going to be very prejudiced. I mean, I'm from Ohio. I'm interested in what's happening to the babies here, but it just seems to me, if Ohio was doing this, other states must be also doing this, because that is what they're told they must do in order to comply with ESSA. But the other piece is that the bottom line of the report once was submitted, Secretary of Education DeVos said, but even though you're submitting this report, you still have to comply with all the civil rights laws, basically, all the civil rights. And so for me, I'm going to look out for Ohio, but it just seems to me there has to be a much larger issue here that national has to be interested in if every state is submitting these reports and dumbing down the expectation for students just so they can have an ESSA plan that's acceptable by the National Board of Education or National Department of Education.
Yeah, and we have someone new on our staff, Ashley White, and she has a lot of policy experience, and she knows ESSA very well. So I should have invited her to this meeting, but I'd like for her to hear this and get her thoughts on whether or not that is required to comply with ESSA.
Okay.
I think she would know better than me. I think we can get a meeting with her sooner than later.
Well, why don't I do two things? One, as soon as we're off this meeting and we record it, why don't I send you the recording so she can listen to it? Number two, I'll send you the link to the task force and the various videos that have been made of the recordings that are also on the website as well. The task force work. And that and the historical background for the state in terms of its first 4 constitutions and what it called for, the Black codes, when public education started, because we made sure that that information actually got on here, because we knew that there would be some need to look at when the Constitution came about, when did public education start, when was there a free education for Black kids? Did it start with the public education system, which was based on property taxes? It was actually done outside by a Quaker family in 1831. Public schools were started in 1825. Atwater was the lead legislator, and it was public education based on property taxes, which is still a discussion. But we went through that whole piece on that to make sure that we were covering all the bases. And that's really what we were trying to do, make sure that we covered the bases and make sure we had everything there. So we can actually get this information to her. You can then discuss it with her. We'll do that today. So you'll have it by the end of the day. And also send the links to this stuff that's actually on the website.
Okay. All right. So I'll send this to her today and try to get a conversation with her today. If not today, tomorrow, since today is a holiday.
I keep forgetting. I don't do holidays, so I always forget it's a holiday for some, and I don't get the holiday. So somebody told us a holiday. So I really appreciate you taking time on your holiday away from family to meet with us. This will really help us. And we do appreciate, I want to restate it, because it was a real weight taken off our shoulders when you recognize the point that we were trying to make. And there are other states, according to the previous state superintendent, other states doing exactly what they did. That actually came up in our discussion, as President Roberts was saying.
Yeah, it would be nice to get a list of those states.
Okay, well, he's gone, so we can look up and see. Now there's an outlier that I've discovered, and I probably need to get this to you. I was going to bring it up to the team tonight. I happened to stumble on. I was doing ODE, which is the Ohio Department of Education, and happened to click on the Oregon Department of Education. Are you familiar with the work they're doing out there? Okay, the Oregon Department, let me back up. The Oregon legislature passed a bill, I think it was 2015, 2016 bill. Now, and I'll send that to you. And what they did was they took a look at African-American students and others' success or non-success in the state. And they looked at it pre-K 16. And they passed the bill. And that bill had money with it to intervene pre-K through 16, and a full task force was put together. And so I think that would be really, I'll send that in a separate email because I was going to send it to the team.
Okay.
Because is a recommendation that I was going to make to the team that President Roberts gets with the Ohio Legislative Caucus and take a look at what they did, because they've already done all this stuff. They've done all the work. They have a state task force in place. I sent in a request and did get a response back from them. And I don't know if there's an NAACP. I was trying to run down an NAACP in Oregon so we could get their opinion and maybe have a conference call with them. But that would be very interesting because they actually legislated a solution and they put money with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now that may have been pre-DT. I'm sorry, Donald Trump. And I'm just trying to say, in terms of contextualizing it and what's going on now. But at least they did it. It's on the record. It was legislation. It was a bill. And I may not be able to get the exact bill, but I'll get a link to the stuff that they did, and they put it on their website.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else from anyone else for Dr. Tolson?
Jimma, I just wanted to know, are you going to share our answer to ODE's request? Are you going to share that?
I'm going to send it to him.
Right. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
Are you going to send that?
In the first email that President Roberts sent, he sent a copy. I'm just going to make sure I resend it so it's fresh in his email today, because I'm sure he doesn't get that many emails. But if he gets emails like you get emails, it may be number 1001. Right. So we will make sure that you have, that will be top of the list when we send it. Any other questions, Dr. Tolson, or anything else you need from us?
No. Yeah, if you send the things that you said you would, that would be great. And I'll reach out to Ashley right now.
Okay, great. President Roberts?
I'm in good shape. Yep. I'm going to talk to you about something else, but I'm in good shape on this conversation.
Okay, Mrs. Edwards?
Not at this time. Thank you so much for your support, Dr. Tolson.
All right, thank you all.
President Brown?
No, thank you for your support, Dr. Tolson.
Okay.
George, former president, I know he has something to say. So,
no, I'm just glad that I did get on, and you did thank Dr. Tolson twice, and I'll say thank you a third time for intervening, because we were having all kind of trouble with the attorney that was supposedly helping us down here in Ohio. So I'm gonna thank you a third and a fourth time for intervening and explaining to the attorney what was up and what was down, because he was a little confused.
I guess
Attorney Flowers.
Oh, the president's on, Jimma.
I guess I just want to follow up with President Freeman. Dr. Tolson, are we all on the same page? There is a mind shift by our Office of General Counsel on where we're coming from and what we're asking of them, and they're in agreement to follow up with some kind of legal action, or are we still up in the air on that?
The mind shift happened, so they agree, but I don't know if they've landed on what the legal strategy should be.
What she said, Dr. Tolson and President Roberts, was at the end, she wanted to talk to you, and there had to be a determination whether it was a legal issue or a policy issue.
I remember that.
That was her last comment.
Yeah, that's like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, it was like a couple of weeks ago.
I need to check back with her.
Right.
Okay.
Attorney Flowers. She may be.
I'm here. I'm sorry, I was muted.
Yeah, that's okay.
I have nothing to say, but thank you also.
All right. Thank you much. So, Dr. Tolson, you have the rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
You've made our day. Thank you very much.
Okay.
President Roberts, you said you had a question.
Yeah, and thank Dr. Thompson. He can leave. I don't think we need for him to.
Okay.
If he doesn't want to. Jimma, I reread